Good day, teachers. So my topic it is all about the code of conduct for public officials and employees RE 6713 that was belong in Unit 5, which is the teacher as professional. So Section 8, Statements and Disclosure. So public officials and employees have an obligation to accomplish and submit declarations under oath of. The public has the right to know. And then their assets, their liabilities, net worth, and financial and business interests that was including those of their spouses and also unmarried children that was under 18 years of age. Next is the identification and disclosures of relatives. It shall be the duty of every public officials or employee to identify and disclose. And then it is the best of his knowledge and information, his relatives in the government in the form, manner and frequency prescribed by the Civil Service Commissions. Next is the accessibility of documents. It is any and all statements that was filed under this act shall be made available for inspections at reasonable hours. And then it is the such statements that shall be made available for copying or reproductions after 10 working days from the time that they are filed as required by law. And then it is any person that was requesting a copy of a statement that was shall be required to pay a reasonable fee to cover the cost of reproductions and mailing of such statements, as well as the cost of certification. Next is letter D, which is the prohibited act. It shall be unlawful for any person to obtain or use any statement filed under this act for uh, a, uh, this any purpose contrary to morals for public policy or any commercial purpose other than by news and communications media for disseminations to the general public. Next is section 9, which is the divestment. So a public officials or employees shall avoid conflict at all times. When a conflict of interest arises, he shall resign from his positions in any private business enterprise within 30 days from his assumptions of office and or divest himself of his shareholdings or interest within 60 days from such assumptions. The same rule shall apply with the public officials and or employee is a partner in a partnership. And then the requirements of divestment shall not apply to those who serve the government in an honorary capacity, nor to laborers and casual or temporary workers. Next is section 10, which is the review compliance procedure. So the designated committees of both houses of the Congress that shall establish procedures for the review of statements to determine whether said statements which have been submitted on time and then also are complete and are in a proper form. And then the individual to whom an opinion is rendered and any other individuals that was involved in a similar factual situations and who after insurance of the opinion act in good faith in accordance with it shall not be subject to any sanctions provided in this act. And then it is the heads of other offices that shall perform the duties that was stated in subject hereof, and so far as their respective office are concerned. subject to the approval of the same Secretary of Justice in the case of the Executive Department and the Chief Justice on the Supreme Court. In the case of the Judicial Department. Next is the Section 11, which is the penalties. So, any public officials or employees, regardless of whether or not he holds of office or employment in a casual, temporary, holdover, permanent or regular capacity, committing any violations of this act that shall be punished with a fine not exceeding the equivalent of 6 months, and then 6 months salary, or suspended not exceeding 1 year, or removal depending on the gravity of the offense after due notice and hearing by appropriate body or agency. And then it is the private individuals who participate in conspiracy as co-principals, the accomplices or accessories, with public officials or employees in violations of this act that shall be subject to the same penal liabilities as the public officials or employees and shall be tried jointly with them. Next is the promulgations of rules and regulations, administrations, and enforcement of this act. So the civil service commissions shall have the primary responsibility for the administration and enforcement of this act. It shall transmit all cases for prosecutions arising from violations of this act to the proper authorities for appropriate action, provided, however, that it may institute such administrative actions and disciplinary measures as may be warranted in accordance with law. And then it is nothing in these provisions that shall be construed as deprivations of the right of each House of Congress to discipline its member for disorderly behavior. Next is the section 13, which is the provisions for more stringent standards. So it is nothing in this act shall be construed to derogate from any law or any regulations that was prescribed by any body or agency, which provides for more stringent standards for its officials and employees. Next is section 14, which is the appropriations. The sum necessary for the effective implementations of this act shall be taken from the appropriations of the Civil Service Commission. Thereafter, such sum as may be needed for its continued implementation shall be included in the Annual General Appropriations Act. Next is the section 15, which is the separability clause. Uh, if any provisions of this act or the applications of such provision to any persons or circumstance is declared invalid, the remainder of the act or the applications of such provisions to other persons or circumstances that shall not be affected by such declaration. Next is section 16, which is the repealing clause. So all laws, decrees, and orders or parts thereof inconsistent herewith are deemed repealed or modified accordingly, unless the same provide for a heavier penalty. Next is the last is the effectivity. This act shall take effect after 30 days that was following the completions of its publications in the official gazette or in two national newspapers of general circulations. So overall, the importance of the conduct for the officials and the employees, it is necessary because the insurance policies have multiple pages, and also it is reading through them to try to understand which is the uh, basic of insurance or the policy. So this is my report, mom. So thank you and God bless.